everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Thank you. Today I am bringing a mix of current affairs, history of Indian subcontinent, geopolitics, international history and policy making. All this in light of India-Pakistan tension and the terror attack in Pahalgam. So Indian forces have used their military might to target 9 terror camps located in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir as well as within Pakistani territory. This was a late-night operation, Operation Sindoor as you would know, and it was intended to avenge the recent terror attacks on tourists in Pahalgam. Following the attack in Pahalgam, there was a surge of anger across the country. The national mood was unmistakably in favor of a retribution, and the rhetoric around taking such action against Pakistan intensified over these 15 days. As a result, in the intervening night of May 6th and 7th, India launched this military action. A salute and deep respect to the brave Indian Army commanders and soldiers who took part in this operation. Their action have sent a very clear message that India maintains a zero-tolerance policy towards terrorism. But the problem runs far deeper than simply demolishing terror camps through these sophisticated airstrikes. It is deeper than the contest over Kashmir or the question of Kashmiri rights. It goes beyond the volatile dynamics of India-Pakistan relations. Why I am saying so? Because just last week, Pakistan's defense minister openly claimed that Pakistan had been doing the dirty work, quote-unquote, of the West for decades. It is from this soil, Pakistan soil, that the idea of terror camps and the training of youth for militant purposes took its root. And now, the consequence of that dirty work, if you see, is spilling into India. Look at this piece of history that is now affecting India. This is the true source of problem. India alone cannot cure this disease that the West, for its strategic convenience, helped to embed in our neighborhood. The disease of terror has been infected in our neighborhood. As our late Dr. Manmohan Singh said, you cannot choose your neighbors, but you can choose your friends. He was a respected statesman, known worldwide for his wisdom. And with his words, India's policy towards a long-term peace needs to be tailored. For India to have a long-term peace, it is imperative that we help shape a healthier neighborhood, fix the fundamental problems with a joint effort of the neighborhood. If you look over the years, 8 decades, India cannot endlessly keep fighting its neighbors like Pakistan and repeating the same actions and anticipating a new outcome is quite painfully futile. We are counting the number of wars, we are counting the number of war deaths. This cannot be India's national policy. My question is, will surgical strikes or putting Pakistan in the grey list on international platforms eradicate the terror infrastructure? We have applied these formulas and methodologies before, yet every time the perpetrators adapt to an innovative method, whether it was Mumbai attack, the beheading of Indian soldiers, continuous shelling of Indian villages across the line of control, stone pelting in Kashmir by the youths, unemployed youths, Pulwama suicide attack, and now the Pahalgam massacre of innocent tourists. Each event has found a way to break through, so these methods are not working. Meanwhile, on both sides of the border, if you observe, political forces weaponize this grief and nationalism for electoral gains. Kashmir has been a top issue in Pakistan. It is shameful, yet an effective political strategy is prevailing in our times. We might be so knowledgeable and well informed, still, this weaponization of grief both in India and Pakistan is being used for electoral gains. This rhetoric and emotional frenzy will subdue in a few days' time. By the time I return next week on May 14th, the surgical strikes will already begin to fade from public memory, it is short. And for a test, I am asking, how many terror attacks since 1990 can you actually remember? So my point is, public memory is short. Hence, the solution that we as Indians should wisely pursue and propose must be long-term. Back to today. At present, the noise of war rhetoric is drowning out the space for wisdom. What I'm saying may not be the most popular stance today, but now is exactly the time to ask difficult questions about the approach the Indian government is taking to resolve this long-standing issue. Before proposing solutions, we must ask, fundamental, why do Indian youths from affluent cities like Gurgaon, Bangalore, Hyderabad not join any group to reclaim Aksai Chin from China, as the Pakistani youth are trying to fight for the Kashmiri rights? Or why are the Indian youths not creating some armed groups against the Bangladeshi current government to protect their Hindu brethren in that country? They are not doing it because the answer lies in fundamentals. India as a community and society is built on the pillars of education, economic opportunity, employment, and peaceful coexistence, irrespective of caste or religion. Diversity is India's strength. The democratic policy making is India's fundamental. Even if there is poverty, India currently feeds 82 crore Indians. So the strength of the Indian democracy and policy is what is holding the fundamentals of the youth. But if we leave our youth directionless, jobless, steeped in poverty, without a government policy, they can easily fall prey to radical ideologies, taking up arms, and then motivated by rhetoric, often masked as patriotism. This is what is happening in Pakistan right now. There is a toxic mix of poverty, misgovernance, and indoctrination, and that has led to creation of terror camps and weaponization of the poor for the political ends. In effect, Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif admitted to this very situation in Pakistan. Therefore, India must now adopt a bold strategy to halt the spillover of this dirty work and the dangerous ideology that is growing in those terror camps in Pakistan. India's strategy must look, therefore, 10 to 15 years ahead. How is it possible? India currently possesses significant economic clout. The world is watching India. Our policymaker must use this economic leverage to hold Western powers like Britain and the United States accountable. They were complicit in shaping Pakistan's role as a pawn in Cold War geopolitics and must now help India to undo that damage. This means working with these foreign powers to fix Pakistani democracy at the first instance, to fix poverty in Pakistan, and encourage long-term peace and development in India's neighborhood. If India's neighbors remain unstable, we will continue to face terror attacks and unrest. Kashmiri suffering will persist for another century, I would say, unless we help shift the mindset and reduce poverty, misled youths across the border. The West must be, therefore, I would say, be a comprehensive part of the peace plan for this Indian subcontinent. We do have the tools of diplomacy and the economic power to forge conditional trade deals with Britain and the US, push them to take ownership of stabilizing Pakistan's internal chaos. Just 2 days ago, India signed a free trade agreement with Britain. I need to ask question to our Indian policymakers as to why peace in the Indian subcontinent should not have been part of this free trade agreement, when Britain had been part of the dirty work, as they say, in the Indian subcontinent. It may sound unrealistic for now, but let me bring in some piece of European history. This is exactly how the European Union has helped transform economically and politically fragile neighbors like Romania and Bulgaria. Time to time, they have also put economic conditionalities and structural development plans like they did in Portugal. So Europe is making its neighborhood safe. European Union membership, if a country wants, like Turkey is bidding so hard about it, the country requires to meet hundreds of conditions, and this leverage has made European borders safer and more prosperous. India must apply a similar regional model, and this model must have economic diplomacy and political strategy to secure lasting peace across the subcontinent. Just as India brought economic growth and tourism to Kashmir Valley, which in turn improved local sentiments and led to peaceful democratic elections, we must apply the same logic across the region. If this economic growth model continues in the Kashmir Valley, there is little reason for the Kashmiri youth to side with terror or any separatist group. That success story must be replicated. Looking ahead to India of 2047, because that is the time I would expect the border issues would heal. Peace in the region should be the top priority. If Europe can reconcile with the enemies of World War I and II, Germany and Britain can reconcile their friendship, why can't we in the Indian subcontinent envision a future of cooperation between India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and even China? At the end of the day, there are no winners in the war, we know that. As Indians, we must not allow our soldiers to become cannon fodders. Lives are not just numbers. I say this after closely observing the rhetoric on both the Indian and the Pakistani news channels. It feels disturbing, like a scorecard of lost lives on either side competing to claim higher numbers as though it was a tragic Game of Thrones. But terror attacks, surgical strikes, skirmishes, and even full-scale wars only delay the process of healing. The scars they leave behind can take generations to fade. We have seen that after the World War. For now, we salute the Indian Armed Forces who executed their mission with professionalism and bravery. But I leave these thoughts with policymakers and fellow Indians. Let us move forward with a constructive vision for a developed and peaceful Viksit India of 2047. With those words of gratitude for the armed forces and condolences for the lives lost on both sides of the border, I leave you until next week. Stay safe, stay informed, and keep asking the right questions. Bye for now.
You are listening to 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Broadcasting from the Dundrum Town Centre, this is Dublin South FM.